Greetings. I'm Bernie Miklasz, and welcome to The Bernie Show here on SportsHubSTL.com. The Bernie Show is presented by DraftKings. The crown is yours. Hey, by the way, as usual, I got to remind you, you can find all my videos, columns, and the podcast version of my videos here on SportsHubSTL.com. And actually, the quicker way for you to get to the podcast version of the videos, just go to Apple or Spotify. You'll find it there. Today's topic is probably an obvious one. I'm always happy to talk about how great the Cardinals are playing and how well they are doing. In fact, they've got. Let me look at my notes here. Remember when they lost those three series in a row early? They lost to the Angels and they lost to the Red Sox, and then they lost a series at Pittsburgh. Just my interesting note of the day for that. Since that stretch ended in Pittsburgh, where they had, again, three consecutive losses. Since then, the Cardinals are 22-14, a 6.11 winning percentage. That's the best winning percentage in the National League since the 11th of April. Pretty interesting. And they picked up a game on the Cubs last night, too. So the gap between the first place Cubs and the Cardinals is a game. You probably knew that already, but I'm just like trying to get my own mind centered on this. The topic, though, is based on what was pretty significant news on Monday at Busch Stadium. Cardinals third baseman Nolan Arenado. As you undoubtedly know by now, Cardinals manager Ali Marmol moved Arenado out of the cleanup spot for Monday's game and moved him to the number 6 position in the batting order. And that will probably remain the same for a long time, unless Arenado starts hitting up a storm. We'll see about that. I guess that's a polite way to put it. There are 3 reasons for the move. Number 1, to get Wilson Contreras and Ivan Herrera in the 4th and 5th lineup spots, which makes a lot of sense for obvious reasons. Number 2, to move Arenado out of the number 4 hole because of his glaring lack of production that's been becoming more noticeable as the days go by. And number 3, a reason for this move being made is Arenado actually took the initiative and wanted to have a conversation about this with Marmol and basically suggested the change. And I thought it was a gracious gesture. We'll talk about that a little more. Well, we'll talk about it a little bit here and then later on. The fact that Arenado volunteered to move down in the lineup says a lot about him. The one part of that's really impressive. The other part is also revealing, but in another way. But the impressive part is that, Arenado realized he was a drag on the offense, and he knew that, he's as impressed as anybody by the way Contreras and Herrera have been hitting. And even he'd be the first to say, yeah, man, those guys should be hitting 4th and 5th, whatever way you want to use them. See, I've always been really impressed when you have an established star in the game and a future Hall of Fame player. When they get their ego out of the way and they put a priority on doing what is best for the ball club. But there is another side to this. Arenado's willingness to step away from batting cleanup also, in effect, displayed his loss of confidence in his own ability to resume hitting with authority anytime soon. As Arenado told reporters before Monday's game, and I quote, "It's been a minute since I felt like I could play the way I should, so I don't know if it's coming back or not." That's a pretty big statement right there. That's a lot of self-doubt in his offensive capabilities. I respect his candor. Man, do I respect his candor. He's not trying to sell a false story about, oh, I'm working on this, and I think, hey, I just need a little downtime, and I'll be as good as new, and I'll be hitting great in no time. No, he's not trying to spin anybody. He realizes that this is pretty serious, and he's a true pro by sharing that with the public. He doesn't have to do that. Arenado got off to a good start this season, and it sure looked like his hard work during the offseason, because he worked his tail off, is starting to pay off for him. He reduced his bulk and put some emphasis during the offseason, a lot of emphasis on having faster hands and a quicker bat and just being more limber overall, which I think has helped his defense, by the way. His defense wasn't bad last year, but it's been phenomenal this season so far. But anyway, through April the 15th of this season, he was batting 311 and he had a 508 slugging percentage and his OPS was 908. I mean, you don't need me to tell you, they're really, really strong numbers right there. But it also only represented what, 2.5 weeks, 2.5 weeks or so. So long way to go, as we always say. So Arenado began free falling offensively right after that. And in his last 28 games, he has batted 202 with a 294 slugging percentage and a 560 OPS. Now, that's a massive downturn. Those are really bad numbers. And they're obviously the kind of numbers that makes it a horrible fit for a cleanup hitter. And that's compounded by the fact that Arenado has had the most plate appearances by any major league hitter at the cleanup spot this season. So that in effect puts more on the line for not only Arenado, but the Cardinals. If he's well below average, well below average, and he has been since April 16th, which is over a month ago. If he's well below average as a number 4 hitter, it's going to impact the offense in a way they're not going to be able to make up for down the road. They've been able to do it so far, but there's going to come a point in time where that becomes a more of an issue, needing more out of the cleanup spot. And, in recent days, if you look at it, because the pitching's been so great and the Cardinals have had a few blowouts like the one last night, 11-4 win over Detroit. But the Cardinals, I think, have been held to 3 runs or less in 4 of their last 6 games going before Monday night. So they were winning some low-scoring games, and the thing you can't that's not sustainable over a long period of time. So yeah, they need a little more oomph from the cleanup spot. From April 16th through Sunday's game at Kansas City, which was his last day in the cleanup spot, Arenado ranked near the bottom of all major league cleanup hitters in slugging percentage, OPS, isolated power. In 116 plate appearances at cleanup since April the 16th, he was batting 210. He had a 305 slugging percentage. He had a really low RBI count, not much power. So something had to change, and Arenado took the initiative to change it. Marmol obviously wanted to do this, and I know that he had been thinking about making this change. You're gonna have to pardon me because I got to get a little bit off my chest here. I get a kick out of people, and it doesn't matter who it is. We're talking about media, we're talking about fans, whatever. It doesn't matter. I get a kick out of people who think managers should react to a hitter's slump by treating the hitter like a disposable item, especially a guy who's headed to Cooperstown and Nolan Arenado. It's incredibly naive to think that you're just going to do this because a guy goes on a slump or whatever. That's really detached from reality and how things work in Major League Baseball. It's not fantasy baseball, okay? Arenado is not a Stratomatic card. He's a real human being, and he commands immense respect in that clubhouse, and you just don't throw him away with the trash, all right? When you have a Hall of Fame player on your team and his teammates look up to him and he's hitting very well at the start of the season, and you're winning games and winning games and winning games even when he is down offensively, you don't freak out and bury the guy. It's a week or two with his bat cooling down. Some fans were even hollering that Arenado be moved out of the cleanup job 2 weeks ago. Some were demanding that Arenado bat 8th. Listen, there was absolutely no chance of Arenado being moved from 4th to 8th, all right? And there was no rush to even pull him from the 4 spot. When your team has lost only 4 of the previous 18 games going into Monday, it gives the manager and the player some time to stay the course and to see if things can get better. They weren't losing games because he was batting cleanup, because they were doing so many other things well, including getting defense from him, that they've been able to have a tremendous record in May. And they actually have, I told you Arenado's downturn offensively began April the 16th. Well, since April the 30th, that's 2 weeks after his downturn began. Since April 30th, the Cardinals are 15-4, and they got the best record in the major leagues. So batting him 4th wasn't costing them games. Oh, of course, the Marmol haters will laugh at that because these folks, God bless them, they get highly aroused over any opportunity to rip Marmol, and their fevers are very, very intense. So that's all right because it's never going to change. Anyway, Marmol did the right thing. He waited it out, but instead of heating up, Arenado's hitting problems became more severe. The Redbirds have been pitching great, and so that obscured another trend, as I mentioned earlier, the fact that in the previous 6 games before Monday night, they had scored 3 or fewer runs 4 times. See, you can't have that all the time. So this was, I thought, a really good moment for Marmol to make the move. But the fact that Arenado had such a really admirable team first attitude certainly made it easier for Marmol to rearrange the batting order. This also showed the high level of respect that Arenado has for his manager, because he knows managers in a tough spot, right? And somebody said, well, no, he's not. It's a tough spot. Okay. Like I said, not a Stratomatic card. If anyone was still doubting this team's excellent clubhouse chemistry, the excellent vibe, and the relationship between the Cardinals and their manager, this should have reaffirmed what reasonable people already knew. Cardinals have a very good thing going in 2025 when it comes to any kind of internal dynamics and the relationships within that clubhouse and the respect that's everywhere in that clubhouse. Now, having said that, there are some larger issues in play here with Arenado and the Cardinals. And when I return, I will get to that. And I'm looking forward to getting to that. But first, I'm going to tell you about DraftKings and their daily pick 6 challenge. The Major League regular season, we're heading toward this weekend, Memorial Day. And we've learned a lot about players. We've learned a lot about baseball, the trends, everything else. And if you think you know your Major League ball or any other sport, then put your knowledge to use and win big cash prizes. And DraftKings Pick 6, you just focus on player stats. You select anywhere from 2 to 6 players. You choose whether the individual player will go higher or lower on a specific stat set for the next game by DraftKings. Let me give you an example. For Tuesday's game, DraftKings has set a line of 7.5 strikeouts for Detroit's reigning Cy Young winner in the American League, Tarek Skubal, against the Cardinals. He's pitching against Cardinal. I hope I pronounce his name right because I always screw that one up. He has 8 strikeouts or more in 5 of his 9 starts this season. So, and I think he's had 8 or more in his last 4 starts. So do you think he can hit that strikeout mark again? Can he get to 8? If you think he will, even though the Cardinals are not all that easy to strike out, but if you think he'll get to 8, if so, select higher than 7.5 strikeouts. So that's an example of how this works. It's that simple. It's fun. There are a lot of good options to choose from when you select your pick 6 players to make you some cash money. Pick 6 is available in most states, including Missouri, California, Texas, Georgia, and more. You will enjoy tracking your select players while the games are in progress, but most of all, you will enjoy winning. So it's a good time for you to get going at DraftKings. It's very easy to get started. Just download that DraftKings app. So simple to operate. Open up an account, choose your sport, pick your players, and get going. Jump in. New players at DraftKings get $50 in Pick 6 credits instantly with just a $5 entry. So download the DraftKings Pick 6 app now and use the code STL Sports. That's important. The code is STL Sports for new customers to play $5, but get $50 in Pick 6 credits. Better payouts, bigger wins, only with Pick 6 from DraftKings. The crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org in Connecticut. Must be 18 and over. Age and eligibility restrictions vary by jurisdiction. Pick 6 not available everywhere, including New York and Ontario. Void where prohibited. 1 per new customer. Bonus awarded as non-withdrawable Pick 6 credits that expire in 14 days. Limited time offer. See terms at pick6.draftkings.com/promos.
Okay, now back to Arenado and the Cardinals. He's been in decline offensively since the start of the 2023 season. In his first 2 years as a Cardinal, Arenado slugged .513. He had a home run every 18 at-bats, and he generated offense at a level that was 34% above the league average for offense based on OPS plus. Just a great all-around player. But since the start of 2023, Arenado has slugged .419, almost 100 points less than where he was the first 2 years. He's homered every 28.4 at-bats, and his OPS plus is only 3% above league average offensively. Brief recap. First 2 seasons, he was 34% above league average offensively. Since the start of 2023, he's only 3% above league average offensively. And his numbers were respectable in 2023. So I would say the decline has really set in since the start of the 2024 season. Since then, Arenado has slugged only 389 and hit a home run every 37.4 at bats. Remember, in his first 2 seasons in St. Louis, Nato cranked a homer every 18 at bats. Now it's taken him twice the number of at bats on average to hit a home run over the last 2 seasons. He turned 34 last month, and given the obvious trend and the obvious downturn and the decline, whatever you want to call it, his offense will likely remain dormant, except for the occasional spike, the occasional hot streak. We saw one of those from him last year. I mean, I certainly don't rule that out, but that's just it. It would be a streak. It's not going to be the norm. And I could give you a lot of StatCast stuff here, but we already know his profile is really discouraging. So there's no reason for me to kind of like beat that into the ground. I want to share something, though. When I was doing my research this morning, I want to share something. I went, wow. That's all I could say is, whoa. This tells me a lot, and it will tell you a lot. And so here's the basics, and then I'll give you the numbers. And they're not a lot of gobbledygook. They're pretty plain. Big league pitchers, and this started last season, but it's really obvious this season. They are challenging Arenado in the middle of the strike zone, and they're doing it without fear. So let me provide the numbers that are eye-opening to just prove what I just said with that opinion I just gave you. In 2022, so pay attention to these numbers, please. In 2022, Arenado had the best season of his career based on OPS plus. He finished 3rd in National League MVP vote, and actually he had a pretty good case to win it, but the honor went to his teammate and friend Paul Goldschmidt. All right, here's the numbers I want you to pay attention to. In 2022, when pitchers challenged him with offerings over the heart of the plate, right there in the middle of the strike zone, he punished them. He hit 357. He slugged 789. He had a 47% hard hit rate. He homered 26 times. That one season, when they attacked the middle of the strike zone against him, he made them pay for it. So remember those numbers. Now, let's take a look at 2025 so far. When pitchers attack Arenado in the heart of the strike zone, this is where hitters should clean up, right? But in 25, when pitchers go after him in the heart of the strike zone, he's batting 167, and his slugging percentage is 250, and he has 1 home run. And his hard hit rate is down by 10, 12 points percent where it was in 2022. Again, let me repeat just the differences in the slugging percentage. Heart of the strike zone, right down the middle pitches. 789 slug in 2022. This year, 250. The power drop means a few things. If we want to be realistic about this, given Arenado's age and the plain and simple downward trend that cannot be ignored, the decline is highly likely to be irreversible, though Arenado, as I mentioned earlier, can still put together some solid streaks here and there. 2, the idea of teams lining up to make a trade pitch for Arenado in the near future or at the deadline is ludicrous, unless there's always an unless. Cardinals ownership's willing to absorb a huge amount of the money still owed to Arenado through 2027. He's making $27 million this year, and of course, as the season goes on, the obligation for that $27 million goes down and down and down, which could be a factor in a trade discussion. But he'll also be paid $27 million guaranteed next season. In the final year of his contract, 2027, Arenado's salary is a more reasonable $15 million. But he'll also be 37 years old in 2027. And by then, what will his offensive numbers look like, given what we have seen in the decline over the last 2 years? So maybe this reality will inject some sanity in the brains of these preposterously stupid content aggregators who waste so much time getting naive fans all revved up over nonstop make-believe trade rumors. Because unless Cardinals chairman Bill DeWitt wants to eat 75, 80, 85% of Arenado's remaining deal, it ain't going to be a trade. And anyway, teams are going to look. And why do you think the market was so slow for him this past winter? These front offices aren't stupid. They see these offensive decline numbers. They know how much money is owed to him, right? That's a lot of money to pay for just a good defensive player. And of course, Arenado's got the contract authority to veto any trade. All right. So number 3, Arenado's attitude has been great this season, and let's hope that continues. And I'm optimistic that it will. I think he's trying to make the best of this. But we also know that failure eats away at him, and Arenado could take a grumpy turn, at least have some grumpy stretches, right? I hope not. We like it. We like the happier version of Arenado. Number 4, for an aging player, Arenado plays too much, in my opinion. His defense remains very valuable, so that's an important factor for a team that's got a good pitching staff, but it's a pitching staff that has to rely on exceptional defense for success, because Cardinals pitchers, with a couple of exceptions, have a really low strikeout rate. It's one of the worst as a team in the majors. But I don't know why, and so I value his defense, and I know those pitchers do, and I know Marmol does, and they should. But that said, I don't know why it would be some sort of outrage, and I'm talking about internally, not with the fans or media. Why would it be some kind of outrage, or put people on the fainting couch to give Arenado more off days to ease his body? Because, we know he deals with lower back issues, and we know he's probably sore and feeling beat up in some other areas. And we know that when he's not going well, he basically has what I would refer to as a tormented mind, right? So this would be a way you give Arenado more breaks, and you get Nolan Gorman some playing time at his natural position, third base. See, Gorman's hardly playing these days because Ivan Herrera has taken over the DH spot, as he should. And Alec Burleson, who's really going to be, it's either going to be when you want a left-handed bat in the lineup, it's pretty much going to come down to either a choice between Burleson and Gorman, and Burleson has been absolutely outstanding lately. So Gorman is kind of squeezed out. So at least this is one way you could get him some run, get him some at-bats, more playing time, is if you just use him at third base more than they have so far. And I think Arenado, whatever would come out of it, I think the rest would benefit to some extent. So that's about all I have to say here. Because of his defense, Arenado is still one win above the replacement level this season, and so his overall performance is a net positive, but not in a substantial way, especially offensively. Not like the way it used to be for this very proud man, this very proud competitor. And the Cardinals have very little options going forward. Marmol used the first option by pulling Arenado from the cleanup spot. And if you're anticipating some sort of major benching now of Nolan Arenado, I would advise you politely that you should seek maybe a little help for your apparent case of the vapors and the dizziness that's making you somewhat incoherent. He's not going to get benched, okay? Maybe he'll play less. He's not going to get benched. What, are they going to bury him on the bench for the next 2.5 seasons? I don't think so. Arenado and the Cardinals will try to make the best of it. And there's only one thing when you think about it. There's only one thing that will lighten the load: winning. Lots and lots of winning. And part of that winning would be a plentiful supply of elite defense from Arenado. See, when a team's winning and winning and winning and winning, we don't look at individual numbers as much. And it's like, oh, you got to get this guy to the bench. He's only hitting 190 over his last 10 games. That kind of stuff. That stuff gets overlooked. It's obscured. And that's the way it should be, because the only thing that matters is winning. So if they're winning, and the Cardinals are winning and winning and winning, 13-2 since May the 4th, you can overlook some slumps, right? But you can't overlook it for the entire season, because there's going to be a time where you will pay for the fact that a key bat in your lineup is not delivering. That's it for me. Thank you to DraftKings for presenting the Bernie Show. I love doing it. And most of all, I love doing it for you. So thanks to all of you for watching. Even if I annoy the hell out of you sometimes, I'm wound up. I can't help myself. You got to let the boy eat. Well, I already just had lunch already, and it's early. Anyway, I hope you have a great day. And thanks for coming to sportshubstl.com.